Happy New Year, leaders and changemakers, and welcome back to the Excellence Foresight, the podcast where we explore what it really takes to build organizations that endure, adapt, and excel. I'm Nancy Naimi, the podcast host. I'm the owner of Excellium Management Consultancy in UAE and Accelerate CAAS in Ireland. As we step into 2026, I want to start with a question I hear far more often than I should. Our strategy is clear, so why don't our results reflect it? If that question sounds familiar, this episode on leading with alignment at practice is for you. Now, here's the hard truth from the field, from the many experiences I've had in consulting businesses. We see organizations rarely struggle because they lack ambition or direction. They struggle because their system do not reinforce the behaviors their strategy depends on. Peter Drucker said plans are only good intentions unless they immediately degenerate into hard work. And I would add to this, unless they degenerate into systematic, repeatable behavior. We all know in 2026, complexity is not slowing down. Leaders are managing more initiatives, more stakeholders, and more pressure than ever before. Now, here's a data point that should give us a pause. In 2025, 68% of organizations reported running more than 15 active initiatives simultaneously. Yet, only 22% could clearly link those initiatives to the behaviors they expected from leaders and teams. That gap between the intent and the behavior is where execution breaks down. We need all organizations to keep focus on the intent, align execution, and ensure that teams exhibit the required behavior for their success, something that we call the true north. So, what is this true north and why is often misunderstood? It's not a poster on the wall or a paragraph in a strategy deck. The true north is a small number of non-negotiable outcomes and the principles and behaviors that guide decisions when trade-offs are required. It's what I call having a principle-based approach to achieve organizational excellence. Without the true north, we see systems drift, leaders spend their time firefighting, governance becomes bureaucratic rather than enabling, and improvement effort loses credibility. And this is something we see in organizations you might have witnessed it in yours. So let me pause here for a moment of reflection. If you were sitting here a year from now, what are the 5 outcomes that would make you say, yes, 2026 was a successful year for us? Not 10, not 20. Think about those 5. Write them down. Because clarity is the first step towards systems that actually behave in the way we want them to behave. So let me share with you a brief example. I worked with a mid-sized manufacturing organization that had what many would consider a solid setup, a clear strategy, central PMO, an experienced team of leaders, and yet day-to-day life felt like constant firefighting for this team. Projects were delivered, but operational results lacked for them. Escalations were frequent, leaders were busy, but not improving the system. And we didn't start with more KPIs or new tools. That was not the route we took. We started by clarifying their true north, those 5 outcomes, and explicitly linked them to principles. From there, we mapped their systems and we introduced leader standard work. We identified KPIs, which we call key behavioral indicators, based on the KPIs they needed to achieve. And this made the expected behaviors visible. We aligned with the principles such as respect every individual, lead with humility. Those are principles from the Shingo model that are key to develop leaders that really focus on the people and the people first in their organization. The results? Escalation dropped by 40% in 12 weeks. Decision-making speed improved. Leaders reclaimed time to work on the system, not just in the system as we often see. So it was really a transformation for this organization, and they started focusing on key meaningful outcomes. Now, before I share a simple operating model for 2026 in this episode, I want to introduce a leadership model that sits at the heart of the thinking, one that I've developed through years of working with leaders across different sectors. I call it the align and balance model for leadership, and it's something I would like to introduce to you in 2026. It emerged from a pattern I kept seeing. Some organizations were aligned but constantly changing direction. Others were energized but fragmented. What was missing was the ability to hold alignment and balance at the same time. And I've seen this in my PhD project. I've seen this in a lot of projects within organizations and working with leaders as a coach. At the core of this concept is the model is built on a simple truth. Misalignment creates noise, and imbalance creates fatigue. Sustainable performance requires both alignment and balance. So let me start a little bit by digging deeper into this align concept. Align focuses on ensuring the organization moves together deliberately and coherently. How would I break this align? A is the ambition, a clear true north expressed as a small number of meaningful outcomes as we already saw. L is the leadership intent, explicit expectations about how leaders make decisions and role model behavior. Leadership intent should be clear in organizations. The I of the align is the integrated systems. Strategy, governance, PMOs, and operations working as one system, not in silos. And how many of you complain about having those silos in the organization? The G, governance for flow. This is where decision, rights, and escalation passes enable speed rather than bureaucracy. How do we design these governance? How do we design the governance in the organization? It is key to align. N is the non-negotiable principles, values that are made visible through everyday observable behaviors. The behavior has to be consistent, repeated across the organization. So focusing on these five and getting clarity is key for organization alignment. Now let me move a little bit to the balance. Balance ensures the system remains healthy, resilient, and human. The B in balance is behavioral rhythms, such as leader standard work, tiered huddles, and routines is a stabilized performance and make sure that everybody knows their role in the system. The A is for accountability, accountability without blame. Problems surfaced early and treated as signals from the system. Make sure that we focus on fixing the system, not the people. And Dr. Deming said 96% of problems in the system, of problems in organization are related to systems and not people. The L in balance, learning loops. These are the regular reflections, connecting behaviors to outcomes. How do we keep these loops working to give us the best input to be able to fix the system? The second A in balance is adaptive capacity, responding to change without constant firefighting, making sure that the capacity of the organization is being adapted to new situations. And how do we make sure that we have that capacity? And in balance is normalized improvement, continuous improvement as part of daily work, not a separate initiative. The Shingo model focuses on building the continuous improvement process in an organization. And that's why the align and balance both fits well into the work that organizations do to make sure that a model such as the Shingo model is really working well and creating a principle-based organizational excellence. The balance, the C in balance, is capacity and energy, respecting focus, prioritization, cognitive load, making sure that we understand these capacities and the energy needed to achieve the strategy, and put the right systems to support that. And the last, the E in balance, is the engagement. How do we make people feel ownership because the system makes sense to them? How do we connect them with the system? So all of this is very important. Balance is important to make sure that tensions in organization is reduced to the maximum. We often take decisions, we build systems that create tension rather than supporting and being enablers for the strategy. So when align and balance work together, leaders stop compensating for poor system design and the organizations begins to behave as intended. So having balance and alignment is key. Now, the simple model that I would like to suggest for you in 2026 as part of this episode on leading with alignment and balance is really about these five things: strategy, systems, behaviors, outcomes, feedback, and learning. And in this order, we start with the strategy, we build the systems behave, and then identify the behaviors, and that's we want to really monitor and measure based on the outcomes, and then we create the feedback and learning. So if we have a clear strategy, we have already designed good systems, we should get the ideal behavior we need to have to make sure that we're successful, and that will give us the outcome we have agreed that we need to focus on. All this should be supported by feedback and learning loops to make sure that the good input is generated into this process to make continuous improvement. And I like the simplest model for continuous improvement, the PTCA, because it really generates that continuous improvement, and it focuses on creating a mindset in people that focuses on looking at improvements all the time. And the check and act are the one I'm talking about here, the feedback and learning. Now, most organizations stop at strategy and outcomes. They define strategy, they define outcomes. The real leverage sits in the middle, systems, behaviors. These are really key things to focus on. Research and practice consistently shows that organizations that deliberately embedded routines such as leader standard work and tiered huddles achieved a 25% improvement in decision-making speed and a 15% reduction in operational waste within 90 days. These are really strong numbers and strong matrices, and really they show the difference when we start focusing on leaders' work and we start focusing on better communication to create better alignment in the organization. We focus with leaders on teaching them how to balance things, and we do the right alignment on organization, and we bring these two together, and that will definitely improve outcomes. So why these? Because they make expectations explicit, problems visible, and learning routines. Now, where to start practically, and I think we're all waiting to hear this at the end of this episode. Now, keep it simple. I have 5 steps for you that will help you have that true north in place and focus on getting better outcomes through the behaviors of your people. First, clarify what's your true north. The 5 outcomes that I spoke about, clear principles, explicit behaviors. This is really important. Second is check system design. Are decision rights clear in my organization? Does governance enable flow or create friction? These are questions that you could ask to make sure that you have the right systems in place. If now you don't have those, you need to fix your system. Then the third would be make behaviors observable. What are first the ideal behaviors? You should have already identified them before fixing the system, but you need to make them really observable, and you need to start measuring them. So that is important. For example, surfacing problems without blame. You need to put the metrics for that. Step number 4 is anchor routines. Leader standard work, tiered huddles, visual management, these are tools, or they could become bigger system in your organization that could help you anchor these routines. And 5 is close the loop, monthly learning reviews that connect behaviors to outcomes. This is the C and the A in the PDCA. How do we really close that loop and make sure that we've taken the right actions and we've executed those ones in a correct way? So these 5 steps are simple, but they are really powerful for someone who wants to really make a difference. As W. Edwards Deming reminded us, a system must be managed. It will not manage itself. And if we leave a system to manage itself, that's very risky and very dangerous for the organization. So as per Dr. Deming, it is important to focus on the system and the behaviors, not just focus on blaming people. Now, as I come to the end of this episode, 2026, it's very an important year for many organizations who want to remain focused. Having a principled and viable and adaptive approach to managing teams and organization is key. Your true north is not what you say in calm conditions. It's how your systems behave under pressure. We always preach and talk about true north, but it's not really implemented. It's not really a system in the organization that help us remain viable and adaptive. And that's one of the things that I would like you to leave this episode with. Focus on building systems that generate behaviors that are needed to succeed and achieve your strategy. Now, your true north is very important. And if this episode sparked a reflection, I'd love to hear it. Share your thoughts on LinkedIn using Excellence Foresight or connect with me directly. And if you want to go deeper into designing systems that behave, keep an eye out. I'll be sharing details soon about a new leadership experience designed to bring these ideas to life. So until next episode, here's to leading with clarity, courage, and excellence in 2026. Happy New Year.